Went to Croatia this past weekend to the beautiful little town of Varaždin with my girlfriend to visit with her parents. And we were driving home from the bus station, and my girlfriend's father said, "I need to ask you a question, and I have to ask it now before we're in the larger family gathering where everyone will get irritated with me if I head into this realm of discussion." And I was like, "What's he gonna ask me about? Sex with his daughter? What's going on here? What could be so uncomfortable that he wouldn't want to bring it up in a slightly more crowded family setting?" And he said, "The question is this: America, this presidential campaign, how can your country not find two more suitable potential presidents?" He was genuinely baffled and mystified. How could you not find two more suitable people than this Tweedledee and this Tweedledum? Do you ever get paint on your penis? I was just doing some painting, walls, not painting paintings, and I went to the bathroom, I looked down, and there's paint all over my penis. I thought to myself, how did that happen? How did I get paint on my penis? Listen, I didn't answer my girlfriend's father's question about the American election and how out of, 375 million people, 360 million people, these two guys became the bells of the ball that we wish to represent us worldwide and nationally. But his question did get me thinking about how monks should just shut the hell up about politics. Unfortunately, however, upon further reflection, it becomes obvious to me that you can't sashay around the political sphere, right? Politics are part of life, okay? Depending on what you mean by the word politics. I used to be the prime minister of a very small nation, okay? I was the shika, or the head monk, at a mountaintop monastery, a secluded community of Zen practitioners. We were basically cut off from the world. We had immigrants who would come and stay for a while, and then they would leave. These were called visiting students. Sometimes we had big conferences at in our small nation of the Mount Baldy Zen Center, and these were called retreats, right? And it was my job as head monk or prime minister of this nation to manage this sprawling metropolis of human beings all united in one cause, more or less. And boy, was it an interesting lesson in what human politics are behind the scenes. And so I want to talk a little bit today about what being a monk and being the head monk of a community taught me about politics. And eventually I want to, basically all the mistakes that I made as a politician in this community, and also what I witnessed and observed. And I want to head around finally in the end, hopefully the conclusion of this video, to talk about the proper approach, I think, to politics for me, which is don't bring politics into your politics. I want to make 3 observations about leading a monastery, and maybe it can help shed some light on the kinds of problems and issues world leaders face, politicians face. Again, I'm slightly kidding, but slightly not when I say, as the shika of Mount Baldy, I was the prime minister of a very, very, very small nation. Okay? So I learned about politics, and I will never be the same after learning these things about politics. It's kind of funny because there is no one less suited on planet Earth for a role of political leadership than myself. And how fortunate I was to have this experience through this dysfunctional, wonderful little land of Zenistan. Now, when I was Prime Minister of Zenistan, one thing I realized was that I had power, and I could feel it the minute my teacher gave me the role. I could feel the energy shifting around me. If I said something to someone who was walking by, they stopped. They didn't keep walking and look over their shoulder, and So that was interesting and scary. And one thing I learned is that when you're in a position of leadership like this, everybody tries to make their world your world. So you have power, which means you can shift their circumstances. And everybody, one after another, has a problem. And you can shift the circumstances such that their problem disappears. So not everybody has a problem all the time, but everybody in Zenistan has a problem some of the time. So basically, my job became over and over and over having people step into my space and make the problem of their world my problem. And that's an interesting experience. Just from a Zen perspective, when you're like King Solomon almost, and someone comes to you, listen, man, I've been in the kitchen working with this new student for 3 weeks. Okay, he's picking his nose on the job. He's wiping him on his apron. And I caught him yesterday going around the other side of our new wolf stove with a tablespoon, spooning molasses and eating it. And licking the spoon and spooning molasses and eating it. He's falling asleep in the Zendo, and then at night I can hear him clicking on his phone. Help me with this problem. So now you gotta go deal somehow with this problem. Problems as ridiculous and weird as that, to very serious financial problems or health problems or mental health problems. Suddenly you would find yourself dealing with a student who was sprawled out in the Zendo, completely passed out drunk from a night of drinking vodka alone after a psychotic episode. So as a leader, your job every single hour of the day is to more or less take care of the biggest problem of that moment. And the biggest problem of that moment is going to be oftentimes the biggest problem of a whole person's practice career. And for you, that's just another day at the office. So one thing I learned is to have a little bit of, just a touch of sensitivity towards the human being who manifests as a politician. Politicians, they have this flat, lifeless, fake demeanor and affect. But I understand now that underneath the surface, they had to decide if they were going to say yes to a drone strike that could possibly kill a terrorist who's planning to kill plenty of American soldiers, and in doing so maybe kill a bunch of the terrorists' family. That may be what these politicians are going through. Leadership is difficult, it's thankless, it's ugly. Leading communities is a job not all of us have sympathy for, but I think we can have sympathy for them and not project so much upon leaders that we can't see that there is underneath all that phoniness and all those lies and all those facelifts and all that orange makeup and all that wandering off of camera because you suddenly forgot where you are and what you're doing and all those, felonies beneath all of the horrible Halloween costume disastrousness of each politician, beneath the facade is a beating heart. Second thing I learned about leadership and politics at the monastery is that because leadership is so thankless, difficult, and ugly a job, it's actually really easy to become corrupted. Because no matter what you do, you're pissing someone off. You are the worst example in their mind of a human being. You are the problem of all problems, and you should be eliminated off the face of the earth, probably hanging from a noose in the public square. No matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you try, you have a whole set of enemies, right? And I think what happens perhaps is that you start off with a lot of ideals and a lot of energy, and you've got the wind of change at your back, and it's propelling you into your responsibilities, right into a brick wall. And you hit the brick wall of your opposition and your enemies, as I did in the monastery a few times, and after a little while, two things happen. You get comfortable, and you get tired. And that's when corruption starts to set in. And I got corrupted as a head monk, right? I mean, I would go up to my teacher's cabin for an important meeting, and my teacher was very old, and then I would just kind of hang out with him, right? I would hang out with him, I would drink tea, I would eat mochi, we would talk a little bit about Zen. I was that guy. I was that politician. Remember when Gavin Newsom was caught at the French restaurant during the pandemic? Clarence Thomas is driving around in a beautiful RV that was bought for him by some billionaire, right? All these guys are freaking corrupt, and I get it, right? The job truly is thankless, but there are these little perks. And kind of like sometimes business happens behind closed doors where perks are shared, you know? Like my teacher's attendant and a priest would be meeting about important Sangha business, and we would break out a $600 bottle of cognac that somebody donated. This bottle of cognac was amazing. It was from France, and it came in a wooden box that was covered in velvet. Right? And I'm sitting there, and all the Zen students are out there, like, shoveling snow, right? We're doing it for Roshi. And Gento was my monk's name, Gento's in there, and he's meeting with the teacher about important spiritual business. And we were in there, in a very warm cabin, asking Roshi about what it was like being a monk back in Kyoto during the olden days, and sipping probably $15 worth of cognac per sip, right? So it's very easy to become corrupt. It just kind of happens. The stakes are really high when you're in these positions of political leadership, and you let off steam in very sort of privileged and extravagant ways. And while I have, there's corrupt, and then there's flippin' corrupt, and I kind of have a little bit of sympathy for corrupt political leaders after having been a slightly corrupt political leader at Zenistan myself. The third thing I learned is there's no conspiracy, so shut the f up, okay? Like, yes, I was corrupt. I used a lot of my office time to write my 2 books, available on Amazon. Zen Confidential, Single White Monk. Okay, I mean, let's face it, these didn't get written entirely in my free time, okay? And yes, I would sip cognac with my teacher up in his cabin. And yes, he would give a proclamation which it was my job to disseminate amongst the students, and oftentimes I would carry forth the spirit of his words, if not his exact words. So yeah, man, there are plenty of compromises that you make as a politician, but I remember watching people take things that were happening, especially towards the very end of my teacher's life when our community was falling apart due to the sex scandal and the lack of a successor in our lineage. A bunch of perfect storm of Sangha destroying ingredients came together. And I watched as people would project demons onto me and others in our community because there was so much energy at that time. And I watched just the pure hate that some people had for me, or just the willful misunderstanding of what I was saying. I mean, that was one of the interesting things, was I would sit there sometimes for an hour and a half with a very ancillary Sangha member. And I made it my point when I was in that leadership role to be vulnerable and open, and boy was that stupid, because it didn't help. People sometimes just won't change their minds. They just won't change them, no matter what you tell them. You give them, like I said, an hour and a half of full attention, explaining all the mechanisms that are going on behind the scenes. No, I'm not selling Roshi out. Here are the accusations. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we did. Here are our intentions. Here's the... I'm unfolding the whole situation that I should be keeping my mouth shut about, including here, but I'm explaining everything to this person, and I sit back and I'm like, I've converted one person to the truth. And 20 minutes later, behind my back, they're running me down, mischaracterizing what I said, and using all my words against me. What we say about our leaders, we are saying about ourselves. That's what I realized as shika. I remember, when people would speak ill of me, and I remember standing in front of them having to talk, and I remember thinking, I am one of you. I'm just the idiot wearing the mirror. I just got the mirror on my face. You're all looking at yourselves, and you're all screaming at me, and that's what you're seeing. So it was very sobering, this position of leadership, when I realized there's no conspiracy. There's nobody in charge. It's a crazy, violent, difficult world. First noble truth in Buddhism, there is suffering, there's confusion, there's chaos. Every politician is inheriting a very flawed situation, and we need to make sure that they're putting in policies to minimize suffering, right? Because over and over and over, when we keep attacking our politicians, when we keep attacking Joe Biden, and we keep attacking Trump with ad hominem personal attacks that are totally unthinking, they're just knee-jerk, I think what happens is the role of president or senator or congressperson becomes a bug light, and psychos are attracted to that light. Because who but a psycho is going to want to be in a role where you're just getting mud slung at you? No one even expects you to actually do the job that helps people. We just want you to perform in a way that reflects how we like to see ourselves, whether you're a nice virtue signaling progressive leftist who has all their I's dotted and all their T's crossed, or you're the new right-wing rebel who's gonna stick it to the wokeaholic, furry-embracing progressive liberals who want to castrate your young, gender-confused nephew or whatever, right? We're gonna get the wrong people in these political roles if we keep villainizing our politicians. Villainize, villainize, villainize your politicians over and over and over. And who do you think you're going to get as a politician? A villain. I figured out where the pain on my penis came from. I mean, where else would it come from? It came from my hands. I wasn't painting naked, and so when I went to the bathroom and I touched, and then there was paint on my penis from my hands. So don't bring politics into your politics. So politics is, I'm going to vote a certain way, okay, based on the issues. Bringing politics into politics is, I'm going to try and convince my mom because that so stupid, she's always voting for the idiots and the wrong people, so I'm going to convince her that she's crazy, right? That's bringing politics into the politics. Or bringing politics into the politics is reading a few headlines for the day and then arguing with my girlfriend at the breakfast table about, as though I'm some, like, master of these particular issues, of fine points of European immigration policy or something. That's bringing politics into politics. That's participating in the spectacle. I really think that, like, springing out of ears, smoke coming out of eyes. We can manifest as Buddhas in this difficult time, and that just simply means being aware of what's arising within you, and then not bringing politics into your politics, which is to say, participating in the spectacle, blathering opinions, etc. That's my take, friends. You can support this campaign for Zen awareness here at patreon.com/shozanjackhobner. That's a great way to support this station. Help me buy a new ring light because this one keeps flickering, and otherwise, contribute to what we're trying to do here over on Zen Confidential. I just used the first person plural we. There's no we, it's me. So if you want to support my channel, Zen Confidential, you can go to patreon.com/shozanjackhobner. Otherwise, take care of yourselves. Keep your eyes open, your mind clear, your ears open, and use that sword of Manjushri to cut right through the spectacle. Sayonara, folks.